My name is Thomas Reed, and I'm 81. This morning, I found myself tracing a scratch on the kitchen table with my thumb, following the groove as if it might lead me back to a moment I couldn't fully remember. For a second, I thought of nothing. Then a sentence landed in my head the way a stone lands in still water. We can do that later. There will always be time for the things you want. Those are the 15 words I've said more times than I can count. I said them to my wife when she wanted to travel east to visit her brother. I said them to my son the afternoon he asked me to come to his first Little League game. I said them to myself when the nights were long and my hands were full and the idea of doing the thing I wanted felt selfish. I grew up on a small farm, learned to fix engines with my father, worked my way through nights in a factory, and then for 40 years at the rail yard. I earned my keep. I kept appointments. I paid the bills. I learned how to be the person people could depend on. Dependability became a part of me, maybe the part I thought would make me worth remembering. I remember the first time I used those words without thinking. It was late summer. My wife, Mary, had seen a newspaper clipping about a painting exhibit 2 towns over. She asked if we'd go that weekend. I was tired from a double shift and the roof leaked a little, and I told her we could go later. She folded the clipping and slid it into the calendar. We talked about it again and again, always with that easy postponement, until one autumn when the calendar filled with other things, work deadlines, the kids' schedules, a small hospital stay. And then the years kept rolling. The painting exhibit became a story we told each other about a plan that had been postponed into forever. It did not feel like a betrayal at the time. It felt practical. Postponing was how I protected the household from surprises. I learned that saying later smoothed other people's worry. Saying later let me keep my hands busy. It let me be useful. There are a handful of moments that map the shape of the loss for me. The ticket stub folded into a wallet for a baseball game I promised my boy when he was 9. The photograph of a beach we never touched because there was always a leak to fix. The voicemail from my brother that I meant to return and never did. These objects are mute witnesses to a life arranged around deferral. When Mary got sick, the first time the diagnosis came, I said later again. I told myself we'd have better days to travel when she was feeling stronger, when the treatments were over. The treatments took time. The calendar pages filled. Her light faded in the way light does at the end of a long afternoon. The things I kept postponing were not thefts in a single moment. They were all gradual, like sand slipping through fingers. By the time I thought to make a different choice, it felt like stepping into someone else's life. I say this plainly. I loved her. I loved her in the way I knew how, by being there, by taking care, by fixing and keeping. But the same way of loving that kept the house in order also kept the world small. There were things I could have done that would have been messy, inconvenient, and perhaps altogether wrong, but they might have been also true. I had chosen safety for us, thinking safety was kindness. It was a trade I didn't fully understand until much later.
My son used to race into the kitchen, cheeks freckled, and ask if I'd sit on the bleachers. I would look at the clock, at the mailbox, at the oven, and say, later. The seasons turned and then turned again. He learned to play without me there. He learned it quietly, not with anger, but with the kind of gentle acceptance that I had to be somewhere else. When he grew older and his own life filled, there were fewer seats to fill beside him. Sometimes the cost of waiting is a thing you can point to, the missed recital, the unsent letter, the boat ride that never happened. Other times the cost is quieter, It's a rapport you never develop because you were always elsewhere. It's a word left unsaid that becomes heavier each year. The losses stack in ways you don't notice until the stack is too high to climb. I do not tell these things to cast blame. I could blame my work, my upbringing, the fact that the world I lived in rewarded steadiness. Any of that would be true in part. Mostly, though, it's my own small choices that fill the ledger. Saying later became a habit, a reflex. It protected me from the immediate awkwardness of choosing differently and slowly built a life where certain doors were closed for good. There are tiny scenes that come back to me more often than others. A Saturday afternoon, my son trying to tie his tie for his first job interview, and me saying, "Make sure it's straight now, I'll help later." He managed on his own. Another time, my brother called to ask if I'd come up for Thanksgiving. I hesitated, thinking of the roof. I said later, and he died 2 months after. I remember the shock of the phone call and the way my hands felt when I told my sister I couldn't make it. These memories are not meant to make someone feel guilty for being practical. They are the record of how I learned what the words I used actually meant. Those 15 words promised a tomorrow that I assumed would be waiting. It wasn't always waiting. It moved on. People moved on. In the years after Mary's funeral, I moved through rooms the way one moves through a house that is almost the same, but not quite. Everything remained here. The green armchair, the bookshelf with the war novels, the chipped teacup Mary loved. I kept busy. There's dignity in busy. It felt respectful to the past to be occupied, but the quiet kept bringing me back to the sentence, "We can do that later." Eventually, a neighbor asked if I'd come to a film at the community center. It was a small thing, but I said yes that time. I remember the sound of the projector and the smell of popcorn, and for a moment I felt like a man stepping into his own life after a long absence. I didn't know why I had waited so long to say yes to a film. The admission cost little. The memory cost more than that. It cost all the minutes I had not spent on other small things. The hard, plain truth I'm left with is this: time is not a bank where you can deposit and withdraw at your convenience. It is more like a river that runs one way. The people you love are not on pause, waiting politely for you to decide to join them. They move through their own days. My pattern of postponement did not protect anyone. It merely rearranged where the losses would fall. There is a tenderness in remembering the good things. Mary's laugh at a bad joke. My son's careful hands as he learned to carve wood beside me. The neighbor who brought over soup when I had the flu. Those memories are not erased by regret. They live in the same house as regret, and sometimes they ease it. And there are times I sit and think of the things that might have been different, and I do not find comfort in what-ifs. I only find the shape of choices made. I am not young. My voice is softer now. When I speak, my words come with a certain crispness that pain brings. You learn to spare others and yourself, but sparing can be a kind of shrinking. If there's a mercy in the end of life, it is that things become clearer. The sound of an unsaid sentence gets louder in the quiet, and you hear what you've left undone. I don't say this to lecture. I am not here to tell anyone how to live. I'm saying what I have carried, because saying it lightens the load on my chest a little. If someone hears my voice and thinks of a small thing they've kept putting off, an afternoon, a phone call, a train ride, I suppose that's up to them. I am not offering a plan. I'm only offering, plainly, my confession. If you'd like to share a small thing you once told yourself you'd do later, I would listen. If you'd rather keep it to yourself, that's fine too. There is respect in silence. If you want to hear more of these afternoons that live heavy inside me, I will keep saying 'em as long as the breath allows.